The build show is really on the road today. I'm coming to you from about 2,000 miles north of my Texas home. We're in the ski area of Whistler, British Columbia, 2 hours north of Vancouver. And this whole week I've been traveling and seeing some really high performance construction, but up here in this snow country, it's a whole different deal. Now this series of videos, if you've missed them already, they've been sponsored by Siga, by Quadlock ICF, and Innotech Windows and Doors. You ready? Let's take a tour. All right, so our first house today, this is actually a project under construction with Stark Architecture and Sitka Whistler Construction. I just got a great tour from Etienne, the owner of Whistler Construction. And because it's kind of loud on site, I'll give you the tour by myself. It's kind of hard to get both of us on camera. But what we've got here is basically a ski house, a chalet up here in the mountains. And they get a ton of snow, as you can imagine, in Whistler. They've got very strict codes in BC, and they have this thing called a step code, which means that by 2032, you have to build to a very, very high standard. They're calling step 5. Now this house is being built currently to step 4, and the builder had to submit all of his energy modeling to the county, or to the jurisdiction, I should say, for approvals. So one of the big things that he's doing on this house is an ICF foundation. Now this one isn't by our sponsor, this is a Nudura foundation, but I wanted to show you kind of a couple of details that I like that he's done here on the waterproofing side. Now ICFs by themselves are not naturally waterproof. You need to do some waterproofing, and below grade, this builder's chosen a peel and stick product. That's a great way to go on top of a ICF foundation, because when you do a peel and stick, you know you've got the thickness of the membrane. It looks like he's got his overlaps correctly. They've got a dashed line on their membrane there to let you know how much to overlap. But critically important is making sure that we don't have standing water or hydraulic pressure pushing on the foundation in any way. And so this builder, and it looks like a lot of Canadian builders, are opting for Delta MS. This is a dimple mat by my friends at Dorkin. They're a longtime show sponsor. And all this dimple mat's doing is making sure there's an air gap or a rain screen in front of the foundation. Now you can see he's got it pinned just at the top. There's really no other penetration, so he's done a good job of installing it. He's backfilled with rock. And at the base of all this, he's got a nice French drain system, and I like how he's got a clean out coming up here to grade on this. Now from the ICF foundation up, he's got more, what it looks like to be more traditional framing, but in fact this is SIPS framing. Let's go up and take a look at that. All right, so now we're inside of the basement space. The builder tells me this is kind of the lay down area to take all your ski stuff off before you get into the house. And you can see those ICF foundation walls around us here. Now, if you're not familiar with ICF, I've done several videos on it, but basically what it is you've got two styrofoam blocks, an inside styrofoam and an outside styrofoam. Not really styrofoam, but you get the picture. And in this case, we've got 2.5 inches here on the inside, 2.5 inches on the outside, and it's a leave-in-place form system so that after the concrete core is poured, and I think this is an 8-inch or maybe a 12-inch wall on this house, this stays in place. And then this system has marks right here for where there's plastic embedded in there so they can screw finishes like drywall right in here. Now one of the things that you need to think about when you're doing ICF is, how am I going to get my wood framing on this, because this builder is using it for foundation. So in this case, you'll see he's got a ledger system, and I'll show you upstairs how that works, but basically he's bolting on an LVL ledger, and then from there he's got I-joists. Now he went with 12-inch on center for these I-joists. That's going to make for a really stiff floor upstairs. But check this out, on this same basement level, right around the corner here, he's got a room that I thought was pretty neat. This is some board form concrete that all get exposed. Stark Architecture kind of designed this. This is one closet here, but this closet, as you walk in, hopefully you can still see me, a little dark in here. This is gonna be his wine cellar. Now in Texas, when I build a wine cellar, I have to air condition it. But here in Whistler, BC, he said no air conditioning. This whole wine cellar where we are here is going to remain at about 50 degrees year round. How nice is that? So this is kind of old school wine cellar. He's got insulated walls on this section, This is going to be conditioned space on the other side of this the other side of this concrete wall. And then this is outdoor space upstairs that's been waterproof. So what a nice little spot for a wine cellar. This is something that I don't deal with much in the South, but this is a concrete insulation blanket. One of the big benefits of ICF construction, especially in cold climates, is that you're basically pouring your concrete into a styrofoam cup, right? When you pour your Dunkin' Donuts into the cup, Dunkin' Donuts coffee that is, into a styrofoam cup, that cup is, even that thin amount of insulation is holding that super hot coffee away from your skin, that has easily a $100 degree temperature difference, and you don't feel it because of that styrofoam. So the builder is telling me he'll easily pour down to 0 degrees Celsius and even sometimes lower with some additives on his concrete. And then he'll put these blankets on top of the ICF to keep that heat in, and he can pour in temperatures that normally you would not pour in. All right, let's go upstairs and check out the framing. All right, so check out the cut on the back of this mountain here. This is a lot in kind of an infill neighborhood. And Etienne was telling me that they basically had to blast out a bunch of this rock to get it in. And this is kind of cool if we can step off into the scaffolding here for a second. He's gonna end up backfilling back here. You see he's got more of that Delta MS. And where he's gonna be backfilling, he ran his 2-story wall in ICF, but this frame over here, which looks like traditional framing, although I think that's actually a 2x10, this is actually ICF construction. Now, if you're not familiar with ICF, very little framing in this ICF wall, but what's inside here is a massive piece of EPS foam. They side it on both sides with half-inch OSB, and it's basically glued together to form a structural panel. So all these big panels come out on the job, and they're typically craned into place. I wish I had a cross-section, but you've probably seen that before. Okay, so check this out. This is cool. That LVL that you see up there, that's that ledger board we talked about downstairs. See how it's got a kind of a saddle shape that has a bunch of black screws on it? Behind that is this. We actually saw that at another job site yesterday. It looks like a stop sign that is just flush with this foam right here. This is a Simpson plate that what happens is they stab this through the ICF forms prior to concrete pour, and it looks like this. And then there's some rebar that's pushed through these holes right here. And then what happens is the plate is the only thing that's showing, and behind the plate is continuous foam from the ICF here, so that then later when the framer comes and takes that LVL and bolts it on, he's actually screwing into this plate, and that's what those black screws are, and that's the saddle that's holding that LVL. I like that system. Simpson's making some bucks on that, aren't they? And then again, upstairs, he's got traditional framing surrounded by SIPs. Now, on the outside of the building, Etienne was telling me that we've got a Siga house wrap that's going to be his air tightness. It's my vest, which is going to do both air tightness and waterproofing for the house. And then on top of that, I said, well, is that all the insulation you need? Because you've got these big, thick these big, thick SIPs walls. And Etienne said, no, for the code, for step 4, we actually have to add additional insulation outside of the walls. So he's got 2.5 inches of rock wool comfort board 80 going on the outside, so another R10. So in effect, his walls are going to be around R50 on this project. And then his windows also need to be upgraded. In the past, he's used a lot of Inotech double glazed windows, but now that he's moving into step 4, he's required to go to triple glaze. So he's got Inotech windows that are somewhere around a 0.16, 0.15 U factor, so really, really high performance, like R8 glass going into this project. And then on top of the rock wool, he's going to do a batten system. It's required here to do a rain screen, have that air gap behind his cladding, and then the whole outside facade will be cedar. It'll look like any older regular mountain house that was built in the last 30 years, but behind that is a super high performance shell. And then the roof, I was curious how he was going to insulate and waterproof the roof. I see a lot of flat roofs around here, which is really interesting. So on top of the roof, he's going to have, what did he tell me, 12 inches, I believe, of XPS foam. He'll do that in 2 6-inch lifts. And then he'll also do closed cell spray foam. So his roof system is actually going to be an R80 roof. And then he's going to do a black torch down membrane. Impressive job site. I gotta say, I really like the architect and the builder over here. They're doing a great job in this really cold climate. Every builder loves a good C-can, a Connex box, a job box, whatever you call it. It's vital to a builder to have some supplies. And Etienne gave me special permission to show you his. What's up, guys? I'm gonna show the world what's in your job box, if you don't mind. Check this out. You'd think this might be an Olympic torch where you're carrying a torch and lighting, but no. This is the most beefy weed torch I've ever seen. Look at that thing. Serious business. Now, we in Texas use this as a weed torch to burn our weeds and to torch down some hot roofs, but up here in the cold north, they're using this to melt off the snow or to dry the deck off before the roofer gets started. Also love seeing that he's got all his Siga products kind of stocked here in the trailer. These are expensive. You don't want people ripping these off, so you got to make sure these are locked away. Like any good builder, he's got a good selection of screws and nails and some hardware to make sure he's got extras of everything. And check out that beam saw he's got over here too. He's got a giant beam saw. They've got a bunch of beams in this job, and I think it's pretty typical for construction in this area to see that. The other thing you're going to notice, he's got a bunch of electric heaters. Really important in this really cold weather to keep all your caulks and sealants, all these kinds of tubes of subfloor adhesive, all warmed and not freezing overnight. Otherwise, you're never going to gun these out in cold weather. All right, we'll let these guys alone. Let's get on to the next job site. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the job site visits. I actually have 2 more jobs to hit, but instead of making one giant video, I thought I'd slice it up this week and give you one video a week. So stay tuned for more from Whistler job sites, and huge thanks to Stark Architecture and Sitka Whistler Construction for letting me invade their job site. Unfortunately, the mountains weren't able to poke out from the clouds that day, but they tell me the job site had an incredible view. We got a couple more to go from Whistler. Stay tuned for more. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.